Hey guys, Solomon here. Hope you all are having a great day. Today I'm going to be showing you an exercise, or really a game that you can play with a friend that is going to help you learn how to use the pawns correctly, right? The pawns are a tricky piece. In fact, I think they're the hardest part of chess, especially for beginners. I see beginner players all the time dropping a pawn here, dropping a pawn there, not setting themselves up for the future in terms of pawn breaks and not putting their pawns into place so that they can succeed. Right, but this exercise I'm going to be showing you today is really going to help you learn the soul of chess, that being the pawns, and how to use them properly. Now, this is actually the first thing that I learned following, of course, learning how to play chess. I learned how to play chess when I was around 7. My dad taught me how to play, but in all honesty, my dad didn't know a lot about how to play good chess, right? He knew how to play, but that was about it. But from the moment he taught me how to play, I was fascinated with the game, and I wanted to learn more. So at that time, I was homeschooled, so my mom brought me over to the local elementary school just down the street, and there was a volunteer chess coach by the name of Fred Brown. Mr. Brown, him and I still great friends to this day. He's almost 90, and he's still staying mentally active by playing chess. Amazing guy, but this is really one of the first things that he taught me, and it's called a pawn game. Okay, so what you're going to do, you and one of your friends can sit down at a board, or if you have a friend online, you can meet up on, an analysis board, or you can meet up in a classroom on live chess, that kind of thing. And really, you can play through this kind of scenario. Okay, so here's what we're going to have is white. We're simply going to have nothing but pawns, right? And same for black. There's no pieces, not even kings. How do you win? By simply promoting to the other side. Whoever promotes first simply wins the game, right? So you got to try to find a way to break your pawns through, and obviously not allow their pawns to touch your side before your pawns touch theirs, right? So it can get very interesting. Let's say here white starts out with a move like e4. Again, we're just going to move our pawns, and we're trying to find some kind of breakthrough to the other side of the board. Okay, now let's say black here plays a move like g6. We're going to advance to g5. Let's say black here plays a move like d6. A game like this could happen all the time. Here white, trying to take up some space. Black tries to advance to b5. White defends. And in this case, white decides to lock things up. Now notice here in this position, 4 of black's pawns can't even move, right? As well as white's. The only pawns that can move are on the F and on the H files, right? But notice here, it's black's turn, and no matter where they go, if they go to F6 or F5, we can simply just capture on F6 or just play en passant, right? And if they play H6 or H5, in either of those cases, we're simply going to take on H6, in this case with en passant, and we're off to the races. White just won this game. Now, some of you may be wondering, was this luck? I don't think so. In fact, I think white played a much better game here, going all the way back to this move of g4. So far, black's playing solid, right? In pawn games, you don't need to play super crazy and get all your pawns in the second rank right away. A move like e6 and a6 are totally fine. But guys, in this case, after g4, white's taken up a ton of space. Black simply cannot play this move of g6. And the reason for this is because now when we push our g pawn, notice for the rest of this game, the f pawn and the h pawn simply are not able to move, right? They can't move without being captured, right? Either directly or by en passant, right? So these pawns on h7 and f7 simply are out of the game, right? In fact, if they are in the game, black's going to lose, right? So in this case, if I'm white, I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, well, I have 2 pawns on the king side as well, but I'm not going to waste my king side pawn moves, right? I'm going to keep these guys back. And this is something else that pawn play can help you with, is learning how to use tempo, especially in endgame type positions, right? I don't want to waste the 4 potential moves that I have here. I'm going to try to lock things up on the queen side of the board, right? And then force black to either move their f or their h pawns, right? In this case, black continues the move like d6. Okay, let's take up some space. Let's capture off. Here we play e5, simply just trying to take up some space, and honestly more than that, some time, right? We don't really want to allow black this opportunity of e5, because then we're going to have to move one of our other pawns. Let's play e5 and really keep both of these guys on their starting spot, right? Again, we're trying to lock things up on the king side to force one of these pawns to move, right? Here, if black plays a move like b5, the best thing we can do is play b3. Simply defend the pawn on c4. And simply by doing pawn games like this, you're going to find yourself really understanding the structure of chess more and more. If you see a move like this, you're no longer going to go, okay, well, I'm just going to play a3. You're going to notice, okay, I got to really worry about the fact that black can capture on c4. I got to worry about that pawn, right? So in this case, we can capture on b5. or we can simply play b3. I think b3 is the much simpler route in this case, right? Because we can just trade off if they take, and then from this point just lock things up. Again, black here, we have officially locked up the queenside, and by playing g6 and allowing us to play g5, black has forced themselves into 2 backwards pawns, right? Again, going all the way back to this position, in which case we play g5. Both of these pawns are backwards. The reason for that is because this g6 pawn is obviously stuck, right? I mean, these pawns on the g file are locked up, okay? There's no way around that. And notice, neither of these pawns will ever be able to move with support from other pawns. Right now, of course, in a chess game, there could be a bishop on g7. We could have a rook here. We could have a knight here. But these pawns are still backwards because the only way they're going to be able to move is with help of other pieces, right? So in this case, let's say, you know, again, black here, they have to just start moving other pawns, and we're going to be able to lock things up and force these guys to move. Going all the way back to this case of b5, pawn games take a surprisingly high amount of calculation, right? In a lot of instances. Again, b3 here is a pretty simple fix, but what happens if we see a position here in which case we just take on b5? Well, notice now, in one sense, white has a 2-on-1 in this case, right? White has a little bit of leverage on this pawn on b5, but these b pawns, these black pawns, more accurately, are more advanced, right? The b pawn and the c pawn, they're more advanced and closer to our side of the board. So at this point in the game, I'm pretty worried about the fact that black can try to make some kind of break here, right? So how do we stop this? Well, let's say we play a move like f3. It actually depends on which pawn black moves here, right? Let's say here black plays a move like b4. Well, against this, we got to play b3, right? This is our saving move, b3, okay? What happens if black plays a move like c4? Well, in this case, we got to play a3. Why is there a difference there? Well, let's go back. Against this move of b4, again, we got to play b3 here. If we play b3, this game is simply locked up, right? There's no way that black can get through. They can play a move like c4, but okay, thanks for the pawn, and thanks for the pawn, right? But again, okay, we see this move of b4. What happens if a3? Why isn't a3 good here? Well, the reason is that now black, well, they can really do a number of things. I think the simplest of them all is just to take on a3, right? Whole idea being that this pawn was a huge part, really the only pawn stopping the c pawn from running to the edge of the board. But now we're forced to take on a3, and y'all, this c pawn is simply off to the races. Black is going to win this game, right? Going back, let's say in this case, we instead play a move here like a3, right? Or sorry, going back, let's say, you know, we play a move like f3. Black plays the move of c4, and then we can then continue with a move like b3. Again, we have to play a3 in that case, right? a3 against c4 is very important because we want to stop this pawn from advancing. More on that in a moment. But again, in this case, if we play b3, what does black do? Well, they're not going to take, right? There's no good reason to take here. I mean, if black takes on b3, we're simply going to have locked up pawns, and it's going to be hard, in fact, impossible for black to win this, right? They're just going to have to, you know, play a move like b4, and then one of these guys is going to have to move because of that g6 mistake. They're simply losing. But going back, instead, by playing b3, notice we simply give up the c3 and a3 squares, and now black is on the run. These are the kind of things that you're going to notice more and more when playing pawn games, right? And finally, going back against a takes b5, if we play a move like f3, let's say we see a move like b4. Again, we got to play b3, right? If we play b3, we've really done a good job of locking up c4. But if we kind of just sit around here and play another move like f4, now black's going to play c4. They've advanced this pawn chain on the queen side up by 1 square for both pawns, and there's simply no way to stop c3 now, right? In fact, even if we play a move like a3, I mean, again, black can take on a3 themselves, or they could just play c3. Right? If they take on c3, black can take either way, and their pawn's way further down the board than ours. In fact, they could also just be kind of cute and play a move like b3, and they're still going to win, right? And then going back, if we take on b4, they take on b2 or play c2, black is going to win this. So again, we got to be very careful with pawn games. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see, which I obviously have highlighted multiple times, is this move g6, okay? I see this all the time. Black playing a move like e6 and then g6. If you see this kind of structure, you got to throw a pawn into g5, because the moment you do that, you're really locking down 2 of black's pawns. and you've only locked up one of yours. And on top of that, G6 is locked up as well, right? So we've taken out 3 pawns simply by this pawn on G5. Now, if this pawn was on E7, this could be a different story, right? If this pawn was on E7, but I still think that having a pawn on G5 in that case would be very beneficial. So what should a black done instead of a move like G6? Well, if they really wanted to play G6, what they need to do is play H6 first and then play the move of G6, right? Now, a lot of you may be wondering, okay, that's cool and all, but how does this really have an impact on openings, right? Why do we care, right? Well, it's really a rule for almost all openings that you don't play E6 and G6, right? The only exception is the hippo, right? Again, y'all know I'm a big hippo guy. Love the hippo or everything else. But okay, back to the chess. Well, the hippo is chess, but you get what I'm trying to say. You know, if you're a hippo fan, we're cool. But okay, I mean, again, the hippo is the only exception that I can think of. But most openings, I mean, especially something like the Sicilian, I mean, almost all openings, you don't want to play G6 and E6. Why is that? Well, because the moment that you play a move like E6 and then you play G6, your dark squares become extremely weak. Okay, there's no way around that. And of course, in a pawn game, we're going to throw a pawn into a square like G5, but in a chess game, we can throw in a bishop, right, into a square like G5. And we're going to have a very solid game there. In fact, we could also play a move like E5, kind of how we did in the pawn game, and we're already taking control of some very key squares. So that's why most players, you know, at the master and grandmaster level like playing G6 and D6 so that, you know, we can both complement dark squares and light squares controlling, right? So again, play some pawn games, right? Play them by yourself, play them with a friend. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think of this exercise. It may seem simple, but again, it does, you know, especially if you play against someone around your level, it is going to take quite a bit of calculation. You're going to have to count, you know, who's going to reach the other side first. And it really kind of helps you think outside the box. So again, thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Hey, I wanted to finish this video out by giving a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of January in 2023. Love you guys and appreciate the support a ton. If you haven't checked out the Patreon before, there's a lot of exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member, and I hope to see you over there.